if you're faced with a ransomware incident and you need to decide what to do, I'm not going to say pay or don't pay. My advice is negotiate.
What are your top 3 tips for businesses and organizations wanting to protect themselves against cybercrimes?
So my first lesson for organizations that want to protect themselves from cyber threats, from different attacks and hacking, my first lesson, know yourself first. Understand where are all of your digital assets. In so many cases, I see security incidents that happen because the criminals know the network more intimately than the organization. They understand where all the open holes and vulnerabilities are. They know how to trick your employees into clicking on a link or installing an application. So understand, how does your network look? What's your digital footprint? It starts with knowledge. It starts with really being insightful and knowledgeable about your environment, because you don't want the criminals to know more about your environment than you do. So that's my first lesson. My second lesson is that it's not just about the technology. So it's not just about buying the latest firewall or the best machine learning, AI-driven network security technology. Trust me, I have designed and built those technologies and they are great, but that's not the cure-all to cybersecurity threats. It's a lot about the people. It's about getting people to be part of your digital immune system, because the people that have to make everyday security decisions, they're your first line of the defense. So you want to empower them. You want to make them knowledgeable about threats. You want to give them the information and the tools to make better security decisions. So it's not just about technology, it's also about the people. My third lesson is that you need to learn from hackers, because hackers are the early adopters for any new technology. They're incredible innovators, whether we like it or not. They come up with really creative and clever ways to use technology, sometimes against us. So there's so much we can learn from identifying, from studying the techniques that criminals use. And this is what I spend my everyday on, researching cybersecurity threats, the techniques and the methods that hackers develop. There's so much that we can learn from hackers, and that can teach us how to protect ourselves.
Do you believe we take cyber attacks seriously enough? And to what extent can such crimes impact our lives?
I believe that cybersecurity today is no longer just about protecting our secret information or our credit card numbers or our Facebook chats. It's literally about our digital way of life. Now more than ever, after the 20-something months of this pandemic, we've learned how much we rely on secure, trustworthy digital infrastructure. So cybersecurity is about protecting a way of life. It's not just about protecting one transaction or one database. It's really about the way we thrive in a modern digital society. Now, the threat of cyber attacks is sometimes perceived to be just out there. It's too big of a deal. It's too scary of a deal. So we leave it as the realm of government ministers and military generals and clandestine agencies, where the effect of cyber threats is actually in our everyday lives, in the transactions, in our work, in our digital devices. So we really can't afford to allow the topic of cybersecurity to remain in the domain of the MI5s and MI6 and the GCHQs. It has to be something that we all know about, care about, and are passionate about. And I think businesses and organizations can stand to learn a little bit more about cyber threats and what they can do about it.
Ransomware is an increasingly worrying issue. What should businesses do if financially extorted by hackers?
So ransomware has been perhaps the most innovative and successful form of cybercrime in the last few years. And I forecast that it's only going to grow. It's here to stay. Ransomware operators have innovated in the last 20 months. They've created ransomware as a service. They've created new business lines, new distribution models, new attack techniques. So if you're faced with a ransomware incident and you need to decide what to do, I'm not going to say pay or don't pay. My advice is negotiate, because in the negotiations themselves, you can learn a lot about how the attackers got in, what they're really after, what their motivations are, and it can actually help in a law enforcement investigation because they can glean clues and hints because the negotiators on behalf of the criminals might drop some information that's valuable to uncover what's really going on. Furthermore, in several cases, we know as a fact that the negotiations actually helped to reduce the amount that was ultimately paid to the criminals. Now, again, I'm not necessarily advocating that you should pay ransom, but I would recommend to be prepared, have that mindset of what do we do if we're hit with that incident, who's eligible on our behalf in our business, in our organization, to even conduct this sort of negotiation or relationship. Is it a third-party advisor? Is it a hostage negotiator? Is it your legal counsel? Is it your CTO? Have some thought about that, and how are you going to respond to a ransomware situation? Because it is happening to more and more businesses.
Can you describe a time where you faced hardship and how did you overcome the challenge?
So growing up in Israel and serving in the military, I've had my share of going through war, conflict, terrorist attacks, rocket attacks. Just in the last 2 years, we've had to deal with the COVID pandemic and with air raid sirens and rockets going off in the middle of the night. So the way to find the silver lining through all of that, for me, it's been something we call in Israel, pressure makes diamonds. For me, all of that pressure has just pushed me to be better at what I do, to be more hopeful, more positive, to really count my blessings every day, to be grateful for the opportunities that I have available to me, for the privileges that I have available to me, and to try and share my knowledge and my passion with as many people as I can. Actually, the pandemic has been quite a challenge for so many of us, and I'm really grateful that virtually I can now reach even greater amounts of people, and I've spoken with people in Australia, China, Chile, Nigeria, all over the world in the last two years. So that's where I find my resilience. It's in really that pressure makes diamonds ideal.